What is up, everybody? Chris here from Fake Sports News, back at it again with another video. Today I'm going to be going over what to expect in this week's split of cross-divisional play for the CWL Pro League. Sorry about not uploading the video last night like I said I would. I was feeling a bit under the weather. I hope you guys enjoy the gameplay in the background. This is one of the best gameplays I've ever gotten in my entire life. Honestly, I went absolutely bananas in this. Of course, looking at Monday, we will kick things off with Hot Mic, where our guests will be Brack, Enable, and Rated. It'll be interesting to hear what Brack and Rated have to say about their new rosters and how they expect to perform against top teams. It'll also be interesting to hear Rated and Brack just talking with one another because obviously Brack left Units to join LG, and it'll be interesting to hear Rated's take on LG and how they think that they will fare in this cross-divisional split. It will also be interesting to hear Enable's take on Rostermania, knowing that obviously 100T went back-to-back like Drake, and they're currently the top dog in Black Ops 4. I don't know if he thinks it'll be tested by these new teams, so I'm looking forward to hear what his thoughts are on the new rosters and how they'll shape up against top teams like 100T, Optic, obviously LG now, and United, and obviously FaZe Clan as well. Of course, kicking things off, we'll have Units taking on UIU. I'm favoring Units in this matchup just because of how good Weeman and Olsen have been all year long, and I expect the series to be pretty close. If we're being honest, I expect it to go all the way to a Game 5. I'm not 100% sure of the outcome of this match, as obviously these teams haven't had much time to practice with their new squads, so honestly I could see this being a swift 3-0 or 3-1 for either team. If UIU is able to slay, and their slayers really step up and perform to the best of their potential as they have in past titles, then I think UIU could definitely get a swift 3-0 or 3-1. But if all things are being considered, I would expect Units to take it just because I feel that they have a bit of an edge in the sense that they picked up two up-and-coming stars in Nolson and Weeman. And obviously these guys have been good in years prior, but this year they really broke out. So I expect Units to take this one. Not really sure what the map count will be, but I have a feeling this one will go the distance. Of course, in our next matchup, we'll see E6 taking on the new LG roster. I think the LG will take the win 3-1, as I see E6 realistically just taking the S&D. They've been a strong S&D team all year long, no matter what the roster has been, so I expect them to possibly take the S&D, but if LG perform as we expect them to, this will be a sweep. Honestly, with all the slaying power that they have, they're heavy favorites to sweep the respawns, obviously, take the series with relative ease, but they could shock us and really win a search and destroy. I mean, Formal has been an amazing search and destroy player his entire career. Brack and Skies are also very strong search players, so there's potential for a sweep. But I'm giving EG the S&D E6 the S&D, just because I think that, they're a team to obviously be respected in that game mode. They've proven it all year long. Looking at our next matchup, we will have FaZe Clan taking on Splice in one of our most anticipated matchups of the week. I expect this one to go the distance, even though Splice haven't practiced much, obviously. Like I've said on many occasions, Temp and Hook are both two of the best players within this game, so I expect them to perform well even with minimal practice. I think that they have potential to upset FaZe, but since FaZe are obviously coming off a top 4 finish at Anaheim, I would expect them to maintain their momentum and win this series either 3-0 or 3-1, unless Splice comes out and absolutely fries them. I know that they obviously have potential to fry with Temp and Hook on the roster now, but I don't really see this happening since this roster has been a thing for less than a week at this point, so I would expect FaZe to take this one 3-0, but I expect Splice to play them very, very closely. Finally, to close things out, we'll have 100 Thieves taking on EG. I think 100 Thieves will sweep this series just because obviously they went back-to-back winning both of our last two CWL events, and they've been in fantastic form all year long since adding Priest to the roster, so I expect this to be a 3-0 sweep. Of course, looking ahead to Tuesday's action, we'll kick things off with UIU taking on E6 to start off the day. I really don't know what to expect from either of these teams going into the series, given the fact that their rosters are obviously so new, but I do favor UIU as they seem to have more slaying power with their new roster, so I would expect them to either take the series in a 3-1 or go all the way to a Game 5, where I would favor E6 to close it out, as they're consistently a good search team, as I've said on many occasions. However, this UIU roster has a couple of S&D stars, so there is potential that they could get a 3-0 sweep in this series if they come out hot and play to their potential. In our next match, of course, we'll have LG taking on Units. I favor LG to take this series, but I'm not sure how quickly this Units team will gel. If their chemistry is really good, then they could definitely beat LG, but I see it being a very scrappy series if that's the case, just because of how strong the Slayers are on LG. My expectation with the LG roster is that they beat Units either 3-1 or 3-0. Formal's been a top player lately, so I would expect him, Brack, and Skies to continue their dominance. In our next match, of course, we'll see FaZe taking on 100T. This will be a really exciting matchup. However, I expect 100T to take it 3-0. FaZe, of course, is a top 4 team, but Anaheim shows that 100T is just in a league of their own at the current moment. I'm not counting FaZe out, but 100T just doesn't make many mistakes in this game, so they're the top dog, and it looks like they'll be the top dog for the foreseeable future. To close things out, we'll of course have Splice taking on EG. This will be an interesting matchup as we will see Accuracy playing against his old team in Splice. Keep an eye on Accuracy as he will likely be playing with a chip on his shoulder this entire series. However, I think that Splice will obviously outmatch EG, and they'll take the series either 3-0 or 3-1, as they'll have more time to practice between Monday and Tuesday's matches, since obviously they're the last match of the day. I think that Splice has too much slaying power with this new roster, and I don't think that the EG squad will really be able to counter it just because of how streaky JCap has been as of late. I love JCap. Obviously, he's a veteran player. Everyone respects him, but he hasn't really been playing that well during this Black Ops 4 season, so I think that he will obviously be the one to make the difference in this series. If JCap steps up, then I think the EG has a good chance to take it. But all things being considered, I just think that Splice at this point has too much slaying power, so I think that they will easily outclass EG. Looking ahead to Wednesday, we'll of course be kicking things off with E6 taking on FaZe Clan. I expect FaZe to take this series with a 3-0. E6 isn't a bad team, but with the new roster, I just don't see them beating a top 4 team like FaZe Clan. Of course, in our next matchup, we'll have EG taking on Units. I expect Units to take this just because EG's slaying power has not been that strong as of late, and picking up Accuracy didn't necessarily help. He has a slower playstyle, so I don't really know that he fits that well in this system, and he'll really elevate them. Of course, Units picked up players that can slay with the best of them, so I think that they have an edge in this series, but I also think that this series could be very close, and it could potentially go all the way to a Game 5. So, all things considered, I expect this to go in favor of Units with a 3-1, but there is potential that EG could win this series if they come out hot, or if it goes to a Game 5 where I favor them in the search. Of course, in our next matchup, we'll have UIU taking on Splice. I expect Splice to take this series either 3-0 or 3-1, depending on how UIU looks in the search and destroy. However, this UIU roster could really turn some heads this week as they picked up some very talented veteran players, and there's potential for an upset in this matchup. So definitely check this one out. I think this will be interesting. Of course, there is potential that Splice could just come out flat because they are such a new roster. Any of these rosters could really not play out that well. We've had less than a week for these guys to really gel and work together, and really 2 of those days out of that week were spent as travel days. Monday coming back from Anaheim, and then of course Sunday going to Columbus for Pro League. So I don't know that any of these teams will take this week that seriously given the circumstances of obviously the travel and everything affecting their ability to play together. Of course, to close things out, we'll see 100T taking on LG. I'm thinking that LG will push 100T a little bit just because of how strong their Slayers are, but I still see 100T winning this series with relative ease. They've proven that they're the best team in Black Ops 4 without a doubt, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Of course, looking ahead to Thursday, our final day of action, to kick things off, we'll see FaZe taking on Units. I expect this to be a swift 3-0 for FaZe Clan for the same reasons that I gave in the E6 matchup. They're a top 4 team, and Units hasn't really gotten as many reps in as FaZe Clan, obviously, since FaZe has been a roster since around January, and obviously Units just made a roster change last week on, I believe, Friday even, so they have very little time to turn this around. So this series might be completely chalked for Units. I mean, obviously they have very little practice time, so I don't think that any of the guys on the team will be sitting there losing any sleep over a loss to any of these top teams, or really any of the middle of the pack teams, just because of Rostermania being so recent. Of course, in our next matchup, we'll see E6 taking on EG. I expect this matchup to go down to the wire, and I favor EG to take it just because of their veteran IGL in-game leader, who is JCap. I think that Cap's experience will help EG to close things out in the Game 5 to give them their first win of the week, potentially. I mean, obviously they could win a series before that, but in my projections against the other teams they're facing off with, I don't have them winning. They could obviously surprise us, but I think that this all depends on JCap and his performance. Next up, of course, we'll have 100 Thieves taking on UIU. I expect this one to go in 100 Thieves' favor, and I expect them to get yet another sweep for the reasons that I've given multiple times throughout this video. Of course, we'll see Splice taking on LG to close the week out. I honestly don't know who will win this matchup, but my gut here says not to count Formal out. This isn't biased just because Formal's been my favorite player for years. It's based on the fact that he has monster performances against the best of competition, and this has always been one of his strongest traits as a Call of Duty player. I know in Halo obviously he's a champion, so the same could be said there. With that being said, Splice obviously could upset. They have a lot of slaying power and they have a lot of potential. I think that these are the two most evenly matched teams in any of the matchups that will be taking place this week. Of course, both teams immensely improved their slaying power during Rostermania with their pickups, so I think that honestly this series will most likely go the distance all the way to a Game 5. I still favor LG just because I think Formal is one of the best IGLs in history. I think he's one of the greatest COD players in history, obviously. His rap sheet backs that up. He's been one of the most dominant players that we've ever seen in Call of Duty. So I think that Formal definitely will take over in this series, and I think that he will help LG to get the win. Looking at my predictions, I'm expecting LG, 100 Thieves, and FaZe to have the best performances of the week. But with these rosters all being so newly formed, none of these predictions are really that strong, as we don't know how the dynamics have developed between some of these players in the aftermath of Rostermania, and any of these teams could really turn some heads this week, so be on the lookout for my update video at the end of the week, as there will probably be some sort of massive upset in one of these matchups. Once again, this has been Chris from Fake Sports News, and I will catch you on the next video. Peace.